What's up, everybody? Welcome into the Auburn Blitz podcast here on this Monday. Glad that you're joining us, and as people join us throughout the show this morning, we want to welcome you in. And boy, we got a ton to talk about this morning here. A lot of good and some not so good. And then we'll get to your comments as they come in as well. Randy, good to see you here on a Monday, and always thankful for every day we get. I'll just start there. I know we got a lot of recruiting to talk about and a lot of, another big win for Auburn basketball. I clearly think Auburn is the best basketball team in the country. We'll get into that here in just a minute. But our thoughts and prayers go out to the family of Chet Williams, longtime chaplain, director of FCA, somebody you and I just talked to a few weeks ago, about coming on this show, being part of this program, moving into next year and doing some things. And, I'll start here, Randy, and I think this is a good lesson for all of us. Let me just say this, that I was on the phone with him. You and I were in a car, and we were on the phone with Brother Chet, and we were talking about opportunities and things. And he asked if I could swing by the office that day, but you and I had just come from a meeting, and we were going somewhere else that we had an engagement, and we couldn't make it work. And he said, well, look, reach out to me and come on back down here to the office, and we'll work something out. I want to meet you guys, and hearing good things about what you're doing. And I never got that chance, Randy. I won't get that chance ever again. And I think the lesson learned is, man, we get caught up in things we do every day, and we go, oh, we'll just put that off till tomorrow, or we'll see them down the line. And we don't know what our plans are. That's the thing. We don't hold the key to that. The good Lord holds the key to that. And so, yeah, that's going to be a little empty void in my life moving forward. That, that happens to a lot of people, with family members and whatever. And so take every day, everybody, for what it's worth, and make the most of it. Don't sweat the small stuff, because none of us know how much time we have. And it wasn't in his game plan last night to end that way. I can promise you, and we'll talk about it. But Randy, I'll just start with Brother Chet there, and I'll let you give your thoughts.
Well, just very difficult to wake up last night to a phone call from you. Unfortunately, many things that happen in both of our lives are phone calls from one another on difficult things. My wife overheard our conversation. I walked downstairs, and she asked what had happened. And, here's the thing about Chet, Brett. You have different regimes come through for all of these programs, and you and I cover high school sports, and we love covering college sports, but they all go hand in hand. There are some individuals in these programs that no matter who the coach is, the next coach that comes in says, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm going to keep him involved, because there's no way I'm going to take him out of the positive impact he's making on these lives. And we've seen it in high school and, of course, in the college side. And Chet Williams for Auburn on the college side was just that, Brett. And you'll see an outpouring over the next week, I can assure you, on players, administration, coaches that he was associated with, and all the positive things that he did for so many down there at Auburn. Because, let's be honest, you don't always hear positive things about everyone. There's going to be negatives. There's going to be stories that come out that you point to and go, I wish that somebody that was in a leadership role for the school that I love doesn't handle things that way or this way. Well, not Chet Williams. I mean, the players that he was associated with really pointed to him in a lot of regards, getting them through a lot of tough situations. And I think we'll hear a lot more of that. Good point that you made to start the show today. I think about it often. It doesn't make it any easier when you get as busy as we are. But, I had a family member on an event that we had a couple of weeks ago say, I know you're busy, and I appreciate you showing up for this certain thing. And I said to him, and I wish I lived it a little more than I said it, but I said, we all get busy. we can decide what's important to us and what's not.
No doubt.
And you either decide that it's important for you to show up to certain things and meet certain people, or you can keep running this rat race that you and I are involved in, and so many out there. It's not just us. You know, you and I talk about it all the time. We think that we're the busiest people in our community, when in reality, we're not. Everybody's got their own stuff that they're dealing with. Everybody's got their own rat race that they're running. And we will look back at that and wish that we had gone over there that day because we had an opportunity. The thing is, I don't even know where we were going.
That's the sad part. No, that's the sad part.
I can't respond to you and say exactly what we were going to do. I know you maybe know, but it's always something. But we're not promised the next day. And he did. But the only thing that you can do is make an impact while you're here. And again, I think you'll hear the outpouring coming out on how big of an impact Chet Williams made on so many lives here this next week.
Just such a tragic way to go, and just going for dinner at Kalijah Restaurant like he's done, I'm sure, no telling how many times, and they had a private party. So from what we were being told is that maybe misstepped getting back on his boat at the dock, and the water in Lake Martin at night's in the 50s now, and you can be a great swimmer. You and I did something crazy a few years ago and did the polar plunge in January, and we voluntarily did that. And you kind of prep yourself mentally when you're running into something like that and how cold it is, and it still takes your breath. It's still, you see people doing the cold plunges for body revitalization and things like that for health and all. And but when you fall in and not expecting, and you got clothes on, and the body's natural reaction is to grasp for air, like suck in real hard and try to take in air. And if you're underwater, when that hits you and you do that, you're gonna suck a bunch of water in, and man, you can be Michael Phelps and it not matter at that point. So that's just from the description we've heard, and then they were able to locate him pretty quickly from what we were told, and just still terrible. There's no good time for that to ever happen, but here at Christmas time and just out, on a Sunday, gonna go get some dinner, and how quickly your life can be turned upside down or can be gone. So I found this, Randy. I've had this. I keep everything. My wife, she's like, I think you got every receipt from back whenever. But when Auburn went undefeated in 2004, they had a marketing thing. They didn't officially get a national championship, but they came up with the logo with the guy flying the Auburn flag, and it sold a bunch of stuff. And they had those spirit bands that people wear on the arm still, like I do. And I wore one of them to the point it turned yellow and it broke. And so I left the other two in the package. I said, I'm not ever going to wear these. I'm going to keep them as a keepsake for that year, because, they don't make these anymore. And I'm sure somebody's got some out there somewhere that you can find on eBay, but probably not likely. But I found these, and I don't know if people can see it, but that top one says Hard Fighting Soldiers. And that's the book that year that Chet Williams wrote about that 2004 team. And how many lives and that he impacted, or how many lives impacted him. And then you can see all the former players already going to Twitter and stuff, and or X, that I still call it Twitter, but X, and talking about what an impact he had on them. And these other players from other schools, and these other, he really started the chaplain program in the SEC and went around and started the FCA and the chaplain program in a lot of SEC schools, Randy. So he was a pioneer. He played at Auburn in the 80s, but he was a pioneer for God, and really believed in SCA. And our good friend Wes Coleman's dad, Billy Coleman, who is our pastor here in Alex City, had a great relationship with Chet Williams, and a lot of people did. He just was so willing to give back and help others. And so it's a bad loss, man, for for Auburn and everybody, the SEC and anybody that ever knew him or had any encounter with him. It's a bad loss this morning for people.
Well, to spend his life in a positive direction, though, there will be over the next week an unbelievable amount of outpouring of people that he touched, and hopefully that meets up with somebody that's listening in out there, and it helps them. And if it gets somebody that wants to find an avenue to touch more people, I'm sure that it will. So that's the thing, after death, it's not always negative, because when the positive news comes out, it can reach a lot of people that's probably needing it. So yeah, really tough story.
Yeah, hard not to tear up this morning, man. I'll tell you, it's it is tough, and so our thoughts and prayers go out to his family, and they've got a great community behind them for sure. It doesn't fill the void of the loss for sure, but we're all there as much as we can be. So there's no easy way to segue from that to getting down to talking about recruiting and winning a basketball game. But that's what he would want to do. That's what he would want to talk about this morning is these student athletes and how great Auburn's doing on the recruiting trail. And, actually that day, to go back, he couldn't join us at Pepper Tree because he had Auburn was traveling and he was part of that deal. So he had to do something that morning. And he was tied up, and he sent his apologies. He said, "I can't be there with you guys this morning. Would love to be, but I'm doing my duties as chaplain for the football team." So again, a guy that worked all the time, and we missed out on that opportunity. But let's talk about this weekend. Auburn had a really, really good weekend in recruiting. As we were on our Saturday show, Randy, the news broke of Jackson Arnold. We'll start there. Auburn does get a quarterback there, but then one leaves as soon as they sign that one, and Walker White decides to get in the transfer portal. So we'll just kind of start there. But Jackson Arnold, highly touted out of high school, is officially the highest rated quarterback recruit Auburn's ever gotten on campus. Now, I know he's coming out of the portal and not straight out of high school, but there's a lot of excitement around this kid and what he brings to the table. And the quarterback always gets the blame when things aren't going right, and then they kind of get unfairly all the credit when things are going right. And there's a lot of discombobulation and things going on at Oklahoma, and he was the easy guy on offense right now to blame for Brent Venables, and he benched him, but then brought him back the end of the year and had a big win over Alabama. So they can't get some things right offensively, kind of like us. So it's not all Jackson Arnold's fault, just like it wasn't all Peyton Thorne's fault over here. Now, there were plays that were made that he should have made or things that should have happened, but it's not all his fault. And so Jackson Arnold's going to get a reset. And all the prognosticators and recruiting analysts, man, just are raving about Jackson Arnold and the abilities that he has running and throwing the football, Randy.
Well, I think all of us just have to trust the coaches and the type of talent that they're looking for, because I'll say this, I walked into work this morning and our good friend Bo Glenn, who's as big an Auburn fan as we are, he said, "Man, I am upset with Hugh Freeze." And I said, "What did he do this time?" He said he let Walker White go, because I had bought into Walker White and liked the skill set that Walker White had. But Brett, you can't carry 3 or 4 quarterbacks that all feel like it's their job to win. And it gets tougher and tougher in this transfer portal world to keep guys around. So Walker White exits. There goes all the excitement we had around him last year. So, I don't want to come on this program and act like I think Jackson Arnold's better than Walker White, or, you just must trust your coaching staff that they pick the right guys. Because in the day of the transfer portal, you're going to have options out there. Now, unfortunately for Auburn last year, Peyton Thorne was decided on to continue to be the option for Auburn. And he didn't have a terrible year. By no means is it all Peyton Thorne's fault. But the team did not progress any further than they had the year before, and he really didn't play any better than he did the year before. So he wasn't necessarily winning the games for Auburn. And we, at this point in time, during the Hugh Freeze regime, we need a quarterback to go out there from time to time and just put it on their back and go win you a football game because they're the best talent on the field. So I hate Walker White's leaving. I can buy into Jackson Arnold. I can look at the recruitniks that talked about him while he was in high school over in Texas and see all of the skill set. I can look at his numbers, and they scream to me that that dual threat quarterback that I've been begging for since Malik Willis exited Auburn is potentially back, not only with him and Deuce Knight that we'll talk about later on how well he played in that Alabama-Mississippi All-Star game, but both of those guys are true dual threat guys, Brett. No doubt about it. Jackson Arnold, if you put him in the right system, he's going to rush the football for 700 to 1,000 yards a year. And I think we're at our best at Auburn when we have someone that can do that. So the two guys that we've currently got there on campus are going to be there for the spring are true dual threat guys that are dynamic. And Jackson Arnold, hopefully it's Bo Nix 2.0, but in reverse is what I keep reading on Twitter. That's the hope. But Auburn's got to develop one of these guys. And if they don't, it's our own fault because I think the athleticism and skill set that we need for an RPO offense, we now have at Auburn. So it's going to be the coach's fault if they don't develop one of them.
Yeah, no doubt. And speaking of Deuce Knight, it's a good segue to talk about him because we're going to go through all the guys that Auburn got in the portal this weekend. Auburn picked up the running back from Connecticut, just picked up a big tackle from Virginia Tech, and we'll talk about the ones that they're really looking at adding in addition to the ones they've already added. But Deuce Knight had an unbelievable game. It was one of the most fun Alabama-Mississippi All-Star games I can remember, and it was a two-man show. It was KJ Lacey and Deuce Knight, and it wouldn't have mattered, man. That's one of those playground deals where I don't care which one I get on my team because they're both good. Alabama won 35-29, which was great because the guy that sealed the deal pretty much for the Alabama team was Anquan Fagans picking off Deuce Knight. Now they got another opportunity because I think Alabama maybe made a play call there at the end that put KJ Lacey in a situation where he threw another pick and gave the ball back to Mississippi for one final chance. But again, the pressure from Jared Smith and those guys up front getting to Deuce Knight at the end of the game. So Auburn it was an Auburn All-Star game. I've never seen it. I told y'all as I was watching it, it was like Deuce Knight makes a play, and then on the defense, it was Anquan Fagans coming up making the tackle. He played really well too, Randy. We'll get to some of these guys specifically, but Deuce Knight, his stats and KJ Lacey's stats are phenomenal in this game. Again, Alabama won at 35-29. Deuce Knight was 17-23, 176 yards and a touchdown. Did have that one pick to Anquan Fagans late in the game. And he ran the ball 14 times for 139 yards and 2 touchdowns on the ground. Our good friends, Rick Cleveland and Corey LeBounty, called the game for Alabama. Now, they weren't the other crew that said that Quinn Ewers was transferring to Alabama. So don't blame that's not our guys. But Rick and Corey called it for the state network on TV and our radio network. And all Rick kept saying, and he shouted out me and you during the game, Randy, he said, my good friends Randy Lee and Brett Pritchard and sitting back home are enjoying this game, watching Deuce Knight run all of it. But they were just praising how great of and in control he was, Randy. And I told y'all it looked like it was in slow motion for him. And when he had that 64-yard run for a touchdown, he looked like he was jogging most of the time. And we know what kind of players were on that defense for Team Alabama. So, man, Auburn fans ought to be just elated at what they saw, and Texas fans ought to be ecstatic in what they're getting in KJ Lacey, man. And both of those guys got the MVPs for their respective teams, and it was a no-brainer.
Well, you made mention Antonio Coleman and Zion Grady made that stop on Deuce Knight late in the football game to hold us off. So
right.
A big-time play for others. And I tried to last week because we've had the good fortune of calling so many of these, Brett, that I try to lay the ground rules for us Auburn fans to not expect a lot. in these all-star events.
Correct.
Because you don't have a lot of time to prepare the offense, to get all of the communication corrected. And when you're matching up against the defense that can get into a system and just get back there and cause havoc, you really don't, it's not fair. I'll put it that way. And over the years, that's panned out. The only times it hasn't panned out is when you have special players, like very special players on the opposing side. Brett and I called the first Alabama-Mississippi All-Star game. We called A.J. McCarron was the quarterback for Alabama. And Brett and I looked at each other and said, if this cat right here plays anything like this when he ends up at Alabama, he's gonna take all the records and they're gonna win all kinds of championships. And look what he did. He was out on the field very quick. He was an amazing player there at Alabama, and you could see it matched up against the best talent for Mississippi and leading the best talent in the state of Alabama. Well, Saturday you saw it. I mean,
No doubt.
if your eyes didn't tell you that Deuce Knight has all the intangibles that you want, then you weren't watching the same game that I was. And here's the two things I really like about Deuce Knight. First off, I think he's got great confidence. He's not exuberant about the way that he carries his confidence, but you can read it. Some athletes they internally know that they're better than most that are out there on the field with him. And it's not action. It's not Michael Irvin. It's not some of this that we saw during the U heyday at Miami. It's none of that. It's just the way that they walk around and carry themselves on the field makes you point to them, and they're the elephant in the room. And Deuce Knight, for me, was the elephant in the room on Saturday. He's the one that you point to and go, I don't know how the rest of these are going to pan out, but that guy right there is something special. You put a mic in front of him, Brett, and he can communicate. He's just got a great way about him. I bragged on Nick Saban so much with the way that he handled his quarterbacks while he was at Alabama. Correct? We don't want to sit on here at Auburn and just constantly brag on Nick Saban's regime, but the one thing that I've always been impressed with was how cool, calm, and collected his quarterbacks were, not only on the sideline, but when you put a mic in front of them, it's like that they were positioned to say the right thing all the time. You never put their team out there to say something that you go, I wish he wouldn't show that character type. And Deuce Knight, look, he may come to Auburn and none of these things I'm saying pan out, but you're getting a guy that has those coming in. It's your fault if you don't develop this kid. To me, I'm watching going, if you freeze and this staff can't develop Deuce Knight into a great quarterback, then just give up.
Yeah,
they can't do it.
You said a confidence. It's a quiet confidence that he's never panicked out there. He's got all this chaos going on around him, all these 4- and 5-star guys breathing down his neck, and he's just floating around out there like, I'm just going to keep my eyes downfield. I know I can run, but I'm going to look and I'm going to make a throw. And his release is unbelievable. He has a rocket launcher for an arm. He does. Now, when you look down and you see you're 17-23 and, had a couple drops in that game that always go against the quarterback. So he was a true dual threat with 139 yards rushing, 176 yards passing, ended up with 3 total touchdowns. If you look at KJ Lacey, he didn't run for anything. He only had 7 yards, but he threw for 327 yards and 4 touchdowns, 21 of 36. And I think Team Alabama only ended up with 4 total. I think by the time you add everything up, the negative plays, I think they maybe only had 4 total yards rushing. That's almost unheard of that you can still win a game, but it was the pure play of these 2 quarterbacks in this Alabama-Mississippi game. If you have a chance to go back and watch that game, Auburn people, if you didn't watch it, you want to go back, not just because Deuce Knight was quarterback in Mississippi. You had the entire defensive line on several possessions was all Auburn guys, the entire defensive line, and they all made plays. Jared Smith maybe doesn't get to the tackle, but he disrupts so much because of his speed. Now, he ended up getting a couple sacks in the game, but he was back there all the time. I mean, it's just constant. And then the Pitts kid from Auburn High School that's going to Appalachian State really played well, I thought. I think that's a big get for Appalachian State. And, you know, again, if he keeps playing like that, I hate to say it, but I don't think Appalachian State's going to hold on to him very long, maybe a year. He'll probably get in the portal and be back in the SEC. But you had Malik Autry making plays, and you had Jordan Crawford making plays, and you just everybody up front was doing so much, and it was all Auburn guys, save a couple. Zion Grady made some plays and Pitts, but everybody else was making plays. And then in the secondary, man, it was Anquan Fagan stood out amongst all those secondary guys.
He always does, Brett.
He is something else, man, to watch, and his closing speed is phenomenal.
It's his ball skills. I keep saying, and I broadcast a lot of ball games with you. It is so obvious when a guy's in the secondary that has no ball skills and those that do. And if you are a great athlete with a nose for the ball, and when the ball's in the air, you can make a play on it as easy as the receiver, that's what makes a special safety. And Anquan Fagans has been doing it against the top competition in the country at Thompson, because they play maybe not the entire country, but they play a regional schedule. They play against the best talent in other states. And he makes big-time plays, from fumble recoveries to interception returns. I think he's going to end up being special on special teams also, Brett. Just a great all-around football player. And you say it all the time, there's certain programs here in the state of Alabama that you want to recruit. Well, I'm just thankful Hugh Freeze and this staff has found their way to Alabaster, Alabama.
No doubt.
And that Thompson High School is a priority for us. And we got two of the best guys they have this year coming to Auburn, and they already looked the part. And to add them to Caleb Harris, that's already back there in the second. I don't care how good Anquan Fagans looks. To me, he don't look any better than Caleb Harris. Caleb Harris is special. And so add him to the mix, though, and you'll have potentially 3 Thompson guys starting on the defense for Auburn here in the next couple of years. And that's saying a lot, but they're coached up by the best here in the state, Mark Freeman. So I'm very happy that they show up there on the All-Star event. You know, one question I had coming in this morning, a lot of Auburn fans down here at work with me, how did Alvin Henderson do? Well, he didn't. I think he had 5 carries for 4 yards. He didn't play a lot, but none of the running backs really got much of a chance. That's how good KJ Lacey is, Brett. KJ Lacey in a game where we couldn't count on any running, and you may look down and say, well, KJ Lacey's not dual threat, is he? No, he was running for his life a lot of the time.
Right.
And when he goes running for his life, that's when some of his biggest plays happen. He reminds me so much of Bryce Young. Does he not, you? Reminds me so much of Bryce Young moving around out on the field when you watch him play.
He's tremendous talent, no doubt. I wanted to go back and talk about some of these defensive stats. Anquan Fagans led Team Alabama in tackles with 7, had 5 solos, had 2.5 tackles for loss and a pick. He could have easily gotten an MVP as well as he played. Eric Winters had 6 tackles. He was second right there behind he was second there behind Fagans. Yeah. And then Antonio Coleman had 4. Then Caleb, Malik Autry had 3. You go on down, and Jared Smith had 1 and 1 sack. So just unbelievable, man. Just a great opportunity to showcase how many great prospects Auburn's getting on the defensive side of the football, and they're going to continue to add to this, man.
Well, Justin asked there at the bottom of the screen, is Fagans underrated? Brett and I have been saying it all year. Every time you turn a game on that Thompson's playing in, he's making one play after another. And that's not normal. That sometimes you get opportunities based off the offensive system that you see, that you know there's going to be some chances for you back at safety to make some plays, but not every game.
Right.
And you got to know that they know exactly where one is out there on the field, and they're not going at him all the time. I mean, who would with Fagans? But I'm really impressed. I think he'll find his way out on the field very, very soon there at Auburn, and what a huge get to pull him away from some of the other programs that were after him.
Huge deal. Let's shift over and talk about this weekend. Again, when you look at the the ones that Auburn's still looking at and the ones they were able to get out of the portal are just massive. And obviously, Jackson Arnold is the main one, but Auburn was able to go in and get a big time player from UConn, running back Randy, that a lot of people wanted, and they were able to get Darrell Robinson from UConn, and again, that's another St. Francis Academy guy out of Maryland. Just a tremendous talent added to that running back room now. So if you get Omar Matson, if you're able to land him, that's kind of got lost in this shuffle. If you land him, man, that's 5 running backs you have now.
We'll go ahead and, for those of you that don't know who Omar is, because he is a junior in high school, but he's reclassifying at Auburn High School, rushed for over 1,400 yards this past year. Brett and I have had our eye on him because, he's a workout warrior. They make a lot of posts with how strong he's gotten, and you can see him on the field. He catches the ball exceptionally well out of the backfield too, Brett. Looks the part. I mean, I don't think Omar's coming in and you're going to say we need to put some size and strength on him in year one to get him ready. No, he already is built up nicely, and he's come through one of the top programs in the state of Alabama. Great weight room program with Coach Etheridge there in the state. And so I think he'll be prepared, even though he's going to be a young guy coming in.
Right.
These young guys coming in out of these really good programs like Saraland with Ryan Williams last year, like Cam Coleman from Phoenix City for us. Some of these guys have been living in a weight room since they were in the 7th grade, Brett. And if their body and their size can put it on, then you will. And you get them in early, and they've got 5 or 6 months to prepare their bodies for SEC play. I think they'll be ready. So I hope we close on him. I did think that we needed to go in the portal and grab one running back. There's been a lot of names rolling around out there that we may go after, but feels like this is the one they wanted, and we went and got him.
Absolutely. I think it's huge, again, trying to fill these gaps, and that's what the portal's for. And I'm telling you, man, he's a guy that I think can come in and have an immediate impact. Xavier Chaplin was a must get, the big offensive tackle from Virginia Tech. Now Auburn's still looking at another offensive tackle coming in, possibly. A name slips my mind for a second. Hold on one second. I had it right here. It's Mason Murphy from USC. I'm looking, maybe for Auburn to end up getting him as well. They're pushing hard, but to have this big man from Virginia Tech, who had a really good year for them this year coming in, I don't think this is going to be a Percy Lewis 2.0. I hate to bash on anybody, but that just did not work out for Auburn this year. But you're going to get a really seasoned offensive tackle coming in from Virginia Tech.
We started every game over the last 2 years. I think he's been, a top 8 or 10 tackle in that conference for the last couple of years, playing at a really good program, big time get in a need position. So really, really happy we pulled that off. And shout out Will Redmond, my goodness. Justin giving us a couple of updates down there at the bottom of the screen. And by the way, if you've got comments, please pass them along. Brett likes to roll those out, and it keeps our conversation going towards what you want to talk about when you do that.
Well, Will Redmond was brought into Auburn to do exactly what's going on here.
And he's doing it.
To identify these players and go out and see who you think is going to come in and have an immediate impact. We got a punter too, Hudson Cack from Oklahoma State. Really another Australian kicker, and he again had a couple great years for Oklahoma State, and so Auburn needed to find somebody to replace Oscar Chapman. And Oscar Chapman was pretty solid most of his career at Auburn. I don't know if he was struggling with something toward the end of this season. It looked like he had, maybe was even fighting some type of the leg injury with the way he was punting. So anyway, he moves on, and Auburn is able to go in and get this young man from Oklahoma State, which is really, really good.
Yeah, major get. Got to clean that special teams up. Got to clean the kicking game up. If I've ever said that since we've been doing these broadcasts and these shows and podcasts, I don't remember it. Auburn has always had an exceptionally good special teams, including kicking game from field goal to kickoff to punting. So need to get back to that.
It's a must.
We're still probably, I'm not giving him any excuses, but if you're going to be a year or two away from having the exact talent level that Alabama and Georgia has, you've got to win the special teams. You've got to do the little things right. You got to win the turnover battle, and you got to win the penalty battle. And Auburn has always been able to lean on our special teams to win us football games, and they have over the years. We got to get it back to that.
Yeah, Michael said his leg was worn out.
Probably.
Yeah, no doubt about it. He did a lot of punting this year for sure, with the way our offense wasn't able to move the football. All right, some other guys that Auburn's looking at. Ashton Daniels may be the guy that they add into this quarterback room now that Walker White exits. You got to have at least one more. It looks like Ashton Daniels has been high on Auburn. Again, he was originally from Georgia, went to Stanford, and maybe is a guy that ends up signing with Auburn. I know he arrived yesterday on campus and plans to be there a couple of days maybe to kind of get an idea if this is where he wants to be. But Auburn's got to get another quarterback, another running back that Auburn's looking at. It's Ahmad Harvey from Louisiana Monroe. We talked about that, Randy, earlier in the week. Obviously, Auburn is really looking at Eric Singleton from Georgia Tech. He's the number one player in the portal. So, he's got a lot of interest from Miami, LSU, Texas, Ole Miss are in the battle along with Auburn for him. Let's just be honest about it. When you're the number one player in the portal, it's going to come down to who's got the best deal probably. And so we'll have to wait and see kind of how that plays out. Also, another wide receiver, C.J. Daniels. You and I know he was in Auburn this past week from LSU. It's another guy that Auburn is looking highly toward. Several other guys that we can go down the list, but those are the prominent ones right now. Justice said, what's your next top portal need? I may have to go with kicker. We got to have insurance there. Yeah, I think that's one of those situations where you got to figure this out, like you just talked about. The kicking game is a third of the game, and Auburn usually has that shored up. And this year it was far from that. And I know the situation that Auburn's kicking game got put in because of the sickness, and it's not that young man's fault. So you had to resort to a true freshman. Then it wasn't working out with him, so you had to get basically a walk-on from Birmingham Southern to come in. So just not a typical year for Auburn in the kicking game. But I'm with Justin. I think you got to look hard at trying to get somebody to come in. I got confidence in Towns Magoo. I do. But he was a freshman, and there were some games that kicks loomed large for Auburn, could have made the difference in them winning versus losing.
Well, you'd rather have an option. And when it goes awry in that, when you get the yips kicking, it's hard to come away from it. And we have seen others do it, and I do think Towns has as much talent as anyone has had coming in. You can look at his numbers coming out of Auburn High and look at the long kicks, and you saw him in the spring game last year where all of the buzz was about the way he kicked the football in that spring game. So we still got him around and still got plenty of time to get him to where he has a really good career there at Auburn. But I'm with Justin. If we've got to go out and get somebody just to make us feel comfortable going into next season, let's do it.
And then the last one that I'll say is go back to Mason Murphy from USC. He was in on a visit, big offensive tackle. If Auburn was able to get him along with Chaplin that they've already gotten from Virginia Tech, could be massive. He had a team high in snaps last year. I think he was there for over 850 snaps last year. So he's a veteran player for USC, and LSU, Vanderbilt, some of the ones that are looking at him It's crazy to say Vanderbilt now, isn't it? But Vanderbilt, man, they get out there and they get after it too, and they're able to garner some of these top players just like the rest of us are now. So that's a quick snapshot on recruiting from this past weekend. Auburn again picking up 4 guys in the portal, and then still looking at several more that they want to add to this roster. So, but they got some good ones. Had to get a quarterback, Randy. Was able to go out and get Jackson Arnold, and we'll continue to talk about that over the next several weeks. All right, let's talk about Auburn basketball. My God, we're the number 2 team in the country, and we're the number 1 team, in my opinion. And it takes us 40 minutes to get to talk about Auburn basketball. This team just looked like they toyed with Ohio State. You look at Janai Broome, he had 20 and 20 points, 20 rebounds. I mean, and it was just didn't even play the last 13 minutes, 14 minutes of the game. This is an unbelievable team, and they are number 1 after I watched Tennessee squeak by Illinois. I think you may see a shift in the polls. I think you should. Auburn's got Purdue coming up on the 21st, which is that's that last big kicker game in this non-conference schedule before the conference schedule starts. It'll be in Birmingham. The tickets are outrageous. If you don't have a ticket right now, you're going to have to pay. You're going to have to go take a loan out to get a ticket. I mean, that's how it is. But Auburn could be number 1 this week, Randy, when the new polls come out. I think they deserve it. I don't see a team better than them. I don't.
No, if we shoot the ball the way that we did Saturday, it's going to take a really good outing by somebody at a neutral site to beat us, because we can win in a lot of different ways, Brett. Auburn's had teams in the past. Let's go back to the Final Four run. If Auburn doesn't shoot the ball well that year, we lose a basketball game against a good team. Now, it still was going to take a really good team, but we had to shoot it well. Auburn this year is, if we don't shoot it well and we get 4 or 5 minutes in, we realize that, hey, this isn't our night, we can bang down in the post. We've got a mid-range game with some of this length that we have, and I don't think we've seen the ceiling for this team yet, because I'm so big on these freshmen there. I love Tahad Pettifor. Love him. Maybe I may like him as much as any point guard we've had at Auburn.
He's unbelievable.
And it's not only his offensive skill set. It's the way he carries himself on the court. It's the way that he defends. It's his length up top and his physicality. Everything about him I really like, and you're starting to see him get more and more minutes. I love Ja'Kai Howard. My gosh, what an athlete. And you add him to the mix with that athleticism to what we're already getting from our 3 and 4 spots, Brett, because he can play both of those.
Oh, yeah.
Now, he needs to play really good basketball defensively to probably get more and more minutes as the season goes on. But, I think that we're lucky. You hate to say it, but sometimes a negative event can be a big-time positive for a team. And I really feel like that plane flight and that video of Ja'Kai early in the season that we're going to point back to and go, I'm glad that happened early on. And he saw that. And he was smart enough to realize he had to change his actions. And he did. And now he is the X factor going late into the season that takes Auburn from being, a Final Four team to a championship team, or an Elite 8 team to a championship team. Because when you get to that level, it's a couple of little pieces here and there and a couple of minutes here and there from key guys that can get you over the hump. But it's the best basketball team in Auburn's history. I don't even think it's really close. It's the best basketball player in Auburn history in Janai Broome. Right now, he's running away with this National Player of the Year. We've seen the number 2 that I've seen this year in Cooper Flagg. He's a great player, too.
Yeah, he's sprinting away from everybody.
I mean, so it's pinch yourself time for Auburn.
Randy, listen to these numbers real quick. 43% from outside the arc, 13 of 30. I mean, they had 9 threes in the first half. I mean, this is a number. We would talk about Auburn getting to 10 threes the Final Four year. They're getting almost to 10 in the first half sometimes. And so, again, the game was well in hand. They shot the ball 45% from the field. Their defense smothered Ohio State, 35% shooting for Ohio State. But you look at the mix again, it's Saturday, it was Denver Jones that was 5 for 6 from the field and had the hot hand and, had 14 points. Of course, Janai Broome just does Janai Broome things, 21 points, 20 rebounds. Dylan Cardwell was really solid again with 10 points. But, Chad Baker-Mazar, 8 points, 2 of 7. You don't have to have him go for 25 every night or 20 or 17. Miles Kelly had 8, didn't shoot the ball, hit a couple threes early, and then really didn't shoot much more the rest of the game. Like you said, Todd Pettiford, he only shot 8 times, had 9 points. Ja'Kai Howard was 3 of 4 shooting, had 11 points. This is such a deep team. That's why it's going to be hard. Again, just because you're the best team in the country means you win the national championship. A lot of things have to go right in that tournament. You know that as well as anybody. But you like your chances when you do have the best team and one this deep where you can mix and match players and no matter what combination you put out there, you probably still have the best team on the floor even when you go to your bench.
Well, you can win a number of different ways, and I'm going to keep saying it. We watch the NBA. We've watched the WNBA and women's college basketball, and so many of these teams rely solely on the three-point shot. I mean, they jack them up. 75% of the shots that they put up are from three. And Auburn can too. And you just gave a stat that's always been important to us, and you've talked about it more than most, that if we get to that 10 threes made, we're going to have a really good chance of winning every basketball game. I'm all for that. But it's nice to know that if that's not happening, you got other ways to win. And the one thing take away all that offensive talk. The one key thing I love about Bruce Pearl is the way that we play defense, man. And if you aren't all in on the way that he expects you to play defense, you don't get major minutes with Auburn. And he's going to hold you out and he's going to talk you through it. And we just give great effort. It's what I've always hoped for as an Auburn fan and what we grew up with in football in the 80s. For us 80s kids, is just tremendous hard-nosed effort that Pat Dye instilled into that program during that stretch. I'd love to get back there in football, but we're there in basketball, man. I know we're talented, but not everybody can be as talented as we are, but you can get talent year in and year out. But what do you do with that talent? How hard do you play? Do you have a system that allows you to win when the shots aren't falling? And I think yes, yes, and yes are the answers to those 3 questions when it comes to Bruce Pearl and Auburn right now. And I'm here for it, buddy. We've struggled with our football program, but it's basketball season, and we can't talk enough about it to make me happy.
No, you better talk about it. I mean, because, again, even as good as we've been, you don't get – Jabari Smith, that team got to number 1 in the country for a small amount of time. But, this team could be ranked number 1 when the new polls come out this week. And I wouldn't be surprised if the voters go, yeah, we've seen enough now. We're going to jump them over Tennessee. Now, if Tennessee stays over Auburn, so be it. But I think it's clear as day that Auburn's the number 1 team in the country. Michael's talked about the Bruce Pearl documentary on War Eagle Plus. He said it really put in perspective how far we've come. And if you've seen that and seen the beginning of that where it opens up with Tony Barbee, and I mean, there is literally not a soul in the stands in Auburn Arena. To fathom that now, to fathom that arena not being slammed to the rafters every time the doors open versus to what it was is really, like I said, unfathomable. You can't even imagine that anymore.
Well, it was unacceptable then, and anyone accepts it now, that we need to get rid of them. And we complained about leadership then and turning a blind eye and allowing excuses to creep into the reason that you can't be putting a solid product out there in any sport. And Tony Barbee was so full of excuses, from us being an Under Armour school to I can keep going down the list.
Losers come up with excuses, right?
Losers come up with excuses, and it's where I am with this football program right now. If a mic goes on Hugh Freeze anymore and he makes an excuse on why he can't win in year 3 at Auburn, yeah, I'm here to blast. Let's put it that way, because you don't get excuses from programs that are building or getting there. And the kids hear what comes out of your mouth, Brett.
They do.
That's the thing. When you allow yourself to have an excuse, your team gives themselves a chance to use those same excuses on why they can't perform. We don't get it in basketball. I wouldn't trade Bruce Pearl for every professional coach, college coach, any coach Auburn's ever had. He'll go down as look, I'd love for him to win a championship, and he's already won several SEC championships, but he will go down in my lifetime as my favorite Auburn coach. It's going to take somebody stepping up and doing something really special for me to change saying that, because where this program's come from to where it is now is an amazing feat, and it took a leader like him to get us there.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Real quick shout out to Auburn's women. They knocked off Virginia in the SEC ACC Challenge 66-57. They're 6-3 now on the season. They set a non-conference game record for attendance in Auburn Arena. Again, you look at them. They were able to knock off UAB on Sunday, the 8th. That's when they set that record for a non-conference victory. So just, again, leadership. It goes right along with what Johnny Harris is doing on that side for the women.
Well, she's recruiting, Brett.
That's right.
She's recruiting. She's marketing her program. She's getting NIL money to come into her program that we haven't had. And I love the brand of basketball they play. Man, they're an emotional group to watch. When you watch them, they're giving it, man. There is nobody out there just going through the motions. And she's demanding it. So we're getting it on both sides, men's and women's. And
we are.
if we keep winning at the level that I think Coach Harris is going to have them, you're about to see that arena fill in for the women's side too, because that's what happens.
Right.
We did it in softball a few years ago. We put a winning product out there, the Auburn faithful will show up.
No doubt about it. All right, it's almost 9 o'clock. I know we got to get out. I want to throw one more comment up there because we had moved on when Miss Jean had put her comment up there, and I have all the respect in the world for Miss Jean. She was secretary under numerous head football coaches at Auburn. Pat Dye to Terry Bowden to Tommy Tuberville to Gene Chizik. She was there for a long time, and so she talks about Chet Williams and the impact he had on everybody, and said her heart's full of precious memories, and talked she had about many things with him, and honored to know him and share so many things. He helped everyone, not only our athletes but our staff. He made us all better. Again, we'll close with that. A tragedy yesterday with Chet Williams. Our thoughts and prayers go out to his family. And, again, like you said, Randy, over the next several days, you'll be hearing a bunch of stories and things on what a class act and character he was for everybody, and not just Auburn people, but everybody else he touched. And it was a big member of the FCA community. So it's not just Auburn's loss, it's everybody's loss. But we'll talk about that more throughout the week as well. But that's going to wrap it up. We got a bunch on the plate this morning. We got it knocked out in about an hour. Again, thanks to all of you that comment away and tune in. Go out there and like
Brett,
our
let me jump in
YouTube. Yep.
Thank Coach Kleinert again for this past Friday being on with us at Bunkers. Thanks to all of you for tuning into that program out at Bunkers. If you'd like for us to come out and be a part of your business and have one of our Friday television shows from 12 to 1, reach out to Brett. He'd love to talk to you about that. Sense of Green had Wade Bennett out there to be a part of the program on Friday also, and Sense of Green is really growing by leaps and bounds here in the state of Alabama. They're one of the largest carrier dealers here in the state. They've got markets in Huntsville, the Lake Martin region, as well as Auburn, Opelika. So give our good friend Wade Bennett a call and patronize Sense of Green for all of your heating and air needs. And I'm here in Dadeville, Alabama, and want to thank all of you for continuing to work with Lee Apparel and Sign Source here in Dadeville. If you've got advertising and marketing budgets you would like to extinguish by the end of the year. We are talking to a lot of people that need to spend those budgets by the end of the year. Lee Apparel would love to throw you some options over there. Customized apparel, corporate apparel, promotional products, and then signage of all types. So we've got lift trucks up to 90 feet. We got 3 brand new trucks that we've added to our installation arsenal this year alone. So give a phone call here to Sign Source, 256-825-0197.
All right, everybody. We really appreciate you. Again, thanks to all of our sponsors, and you make this program happen. And Auburn
Hey, Brett,
Blitz.
one more quick thing. I almost forgot. I hate to keep stopping you, but
That's all right.
Real quick story I heard over the Christmas break. My uncle by marriage, Jerry Robinson, lives up in Kentucky, and he's working at a gun shop up there in Kentucky, and mentioned that tuned into us on YouTube. So Jerry, thank you for finding us out there.
Right.
He did say, well, that's my nephew there talking, and the 2 guys that were working, you're going to like this, Brett. The 2 guys that were working there with him said, "You telling me that preppy boy right there is your nephew?" And so he's not one that tunes into anything but YouTube. It's where he gets all of his information.
Great.
It's where he watches all of his programming. If you're just finding us and wonder who in the world are these 2 Auburn guys that I've never seen talking, Brett and I have really been doing television shows for sports, high school
Almost
and
20
college
years.
for 20 years here in the state of Alabama. Now we've leaned in with our good friend Luke Robinson, who's part of our team, and all of his hard work on the Locked On Bama side of things. We're leaning into this podcast side too. So you'll see Luke on with us from time to time to kind of give the Alabama spin to things, especially with our Sports Blitz programming. But I did want to throw that out there, Brett. I thought you'd enjoy that. Who's the preppy guy over there with Brett talking over in Kentucky? Now, he did say that it was election day and I had my Trump gear on.
Yeah.
And I went into a full-blown rant on how I hope Trump gets in. The 2 guys said, "Well, I like your preppy nephew." When I
there you go.
That, so.
Well, they approved of your decision, right? Hey, look, we do want to encourage everybody, like you said, and Justin, I pulled his comment up because he said it like everybody, like we would say it. Subscribe and share. 500. So we're getting close to that 500 subscriptions, and I'm telling you, we've grown tremendously here in the last couple of months. And we started with our reaction show after the Kentucky game. We picked a good one to start with after the Auburn-Kentucky football game. And we've continued on. So we're going to continue to do reaction shows after big games, especially when Auburn gets into SEC play. We'll do Auburn basketball reaction shows. And then we're going to do our podcast every morning here around the 8 o'clock hour. And then we got Auburn Blitz that is 5 days a week on TV and social media around the state of Alabama. Andy and Jim will be on this morning, or actually at lunch at noon. And I believe it's Andy's birthday today. So happy birthday to Andy. We got a lot of birthdays this time of year with all of our people. So it's hard to kind of keep up. But watch today on Auburn Blitz. I know Andy and Jim will have a lot to add to what you and I've already talked about this morning. All right. Hope everybody has a great start to their week Monday. We're getting close to Christmas. Go out there, enjoy your time with each other, and we'll see you tomorrow.